Okay, we've gotten the thumbs up. So in 3 seconds, we'll start. Good evening. Thank you for attending the Baltimore County Executive's third Budget Town Hall for District 7, hosted by your County Executive, Johnny Olszewski Jr., and your County Councilman, Todd Crandall. I am Amanda Carr from the County Executive's Office of Community Engagement, and I am pleased to introduce to you Pete Kriskumis, my colleague and your Community Outreach Coordinator.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here this evening with Councilman Crandall and Mr. County Executive and the great citizens of District 7. It's been an honor over the last 2 years to serve you on behalf of the County Executive, and I look forward to continue serving you.
Thanks, Pete. In a moment, I will turn it over to Councilman Crandall for brief remarks. But first, I want to thank all of you who submitted your questions in advance. The County Executive, one of our department heads, or Councilman Crandall will answer as many of your budget-related questions as possible tonight. For those of you who are watching through social media, you may submit your questions in the comment section. They will be answered after the County Executive's budget presentation. If we cannot answer your question tonight, we will have Pete Kriskumis, your District 7 representative, follow up with you. And now it is my honor and privilege to welcome your Councilman, Todd Crandall.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here this evening with the County Executive and all the agency directors. And the first thing I want to do is thank our constituents who have joined us this evening and who are really part of maybe the largest and best community involvement that our district has ever had. And I think in such a trying year that our district can be really proud of the efforts that our organizations and volunteers and others have contributed during this, as I said, very trying time in the past year. So with that said, I want to thank the agency directors that are taking time out of their evening to join us tonight. I think we all remember a time where a lot of us didn't know who the agency directors were. And through these town halls, they've made themselves available to you. I think that either Pete or Amanda or even the county executive will let you know that if a question can't be answered tonight, that someone will be in contact, and it might even be an agency director or a deputy director. So I think that's a breath of fresh air for Baltimore County. I do want to thank the county executive for continuing to hold these budget town halls. This is the third one that we've done together in the 7th district. In the past, the budget process was closed. It was a closed process until the budget was presented to the council for deliberation and vote, where we can only cut, we can't add to the budget. And in the past, there hasn't been a lot of community input in what the budget priorities of the citizens of Baltimore County are. So this is a welcome opportunity to provide input. And you know, the fact that it was a closed process in the past led the county council a few years ago to require the county executive to conduct 2 community meetings for the budget process and to receive community input on the budget. I think it's safe to say that, Johnny, you have exceeded that requirement. So just want to thank you for that. And now I think one of the elephants in the room may be that how are Johnny and Todd on the same call? Don't they have such differences of opinion? Doesn't Todd vote no all the time? And maybe that is the case, and we certainly do share some differences of opinion. My votes on certain issues reflect those differences. However, neither of us has taken those differences personally, and we haven't affected the way that we need to work together to benefit and represent the citizens that we represent in the right way. And just some short examples of that. We continue to provide public sector support for Trade Point Atlantic, which is progressing faster than I think most of us expected that it would. Now, with the success of Trade Point Atlantic and the growth of the Port of Baltimore, there are some challenges presented in that, and we have some trucking issues in the district with both volume and trucks being on illegal routes. We sent our complaints over to the administration, and the administration, under the county executive's direction, established a truck traffic work group that the 7th District, my office, and therefore the 7th District is represented on that work group. And we're hoping that we get some recommendations on some solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing with respect to that. One other example is I've been working with the administration, again, under Johnny's direction, for a few months now on some legislation that was just introduced to the council last night that is a follow-on to a resolution that we passed last year to establish a funding mechanism using corporate philanthropy to fund certain projects throughout Baltimore County. And it's a little more complicated than I want to get into right now, but we've worked together on this legislation. And in fact, the administration and myself are the co-sponsors of the legislation. So I'm really happy about that. And when the news comes out about that and we put pen to paper on that bill, I'm going to be very excited about it. The last thing, and I'm not going to talk too much in detail about it, but there is a new waterfront park on the horizon in District 7, and I believe that the county executive is going to talk about this, so I'll leave the details to him. But it's something that has received a lot of community support so far with the concept plan, and it's something that I advocated for and we worked together on, and I was just pleased that this project is coming to fruition. So it's good to see so many of you. I wish I could see you in person. I hope the light is at the end of the tunnel and we can do that very, very soon, and we can get back engaged personally, which would be great. So with that, thank you again, and I'll leave it to or let it go over to County Executive Johnny Olszewski.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that, and appreciate the areas where we are working together, and your partnership for being here tonight and working together on the budget as we have, as you pointed out, for the past 3 years together. So really excited to welcome everybody to our town hall and be with everybody, even if it's just virtually tonight. We are also joined, as the councilman pointed out, by our administrative officer, Stacy Rogers, as well as either a director or deputy director for every agency here in Baltimore County. So we're grateful to have their representation to work with you tonight and beyond. It has been my honor to work alongside that team, Councilman Crandall, and all of you to build a better Baltimore County. And over the last 2 years, with your help, I'm really proud of the standards we've set in local government and a new and better way of doing things, including the budget process. So last year when we came together for this town hall, we were meeting under a very different set of circumstances. Working with all of you, we had closed an $81 million deficit. We had put our county's fiscal house in order, and we had maintained the county's AAA bond rating, a rating that was again recently affirmed just a few weeks ago because of the actions we've taken together. And so last time when we met, we were on stronger financial footing, and we were positioned for progress. We had enacted unprecedented ethics and accountability reforms. We had been releasing public data dashboards, and we were bringing new levels of transparency to government. And we were poised to build upon that record funding for schools, along with investments across all of our communities. But then obviously, this past year has been marred by COVID-19, and that was certainly the case for what COVID-19 has done to our budgeting process last year. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were forced to work with Councilman Crandall and the County Council to cut about $100 million of spending, but we still managed to pass a budget that focused on the essentials: education, public safety, and those critical services that our residents depend upon. We also were actively preparing for this unprecedented crisis, the likes of which we had never seen before. About 1 year ago today, the county recorded our first case of COVID-19. We now have over 51,000 confirmed cases. We've lost, unfortunately, over 1,200 of our neighbors and loved ones. We know that countless residents have lost their jobs or their business. And just one data point to that sort of incredible impact is that almost 250,000 Baltimore County residents have had to file uninsurance employment claims. Within weeks, though, we were able to build a COVID-19 testing operation. And since then, we've provided almost 500,000 tests free and without the need of a doctor's note. We stood up a PPE distribution network and created a robust contact tracing operation. We've also seen and have stepped up to meet the immense needs from our communities, because I believe and we believe in our administration that government has an obligation to help people meet their most basic needs. And I'm proud to report that we are meeting those needs, having distributed over 15 million meals in collaboration with the Baltimore County school system and our library system, with partnerships like the Maryland Food Bank, H&S Bakery, and our local Baltimore County farmers. Through our eviction prevention, we've given out over $5 million to help 1,400 households avoid eviction. In June, we started phase 1 of that eviction prevention program, distributing $1.2 million to nearly 485 of those households. In phase 2, we put $5 million towards partners like the Community Assistance Network, headquartered here in District 7, along with Catholic Charities, to distribute those funds even more efficiently. And in the initial phases, what we were finding was that the majority of applications for rental assistance came from 9 zip codes that had the high rate of housing instability and poverty, in addition to high rates of COVID-19 transmission. So we're using data to help inform our response. And now, thanks to an innovative partnership with the United Way of Central Maryland, we're providing $4.2 million to help an additional 900 households in those communities of need, and looking forward to doing more on that front. Proud to report that we also received a recent $24.7 million grant from U.S. Treasury to help do more through emergency rental assistance. And we estimate those funds will help prevent at least an additional 1,250 county renters from being evicted. We're also working hard to close the digital divide with 6 months of Comcast Internet Essentials to 11,000 houses. We created a program to help our low-income families pay for childcare, to support those who have school-age children who had been engaged in remote learning, creating also a similar program for county employees who had school-age children. And, we are doing all that we can to help our neighbors, residents, and businesses alike to get to the other side of this crisis. That's why, for the business side of the house, we've provided millions of dollars to restaurants and businesses to stay open, and millions more to help them keep staff and customers alike safe. We've given out over 1,350 grant awards across 6 different programs, totaling $21 million to date. Over 13 million of that has gone to restaurants. And through our small business reimbursement grant program, we helped nearly 300 businesses install equipment to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. We've distributed over $4 million as part of our small business relief grant program. And I'm proud to report that over half of all of our grants have been awarded to minority and women-owned firms. This grant volume is impressive. It's about 20 times our usual amount, something we've been able to process quickly and efficiently without any new resources. As Councilman Crandall mentioned, there is some light at the end of the tunnel we're beginning to see. We distributed our first vaccine back on December 23rd. And since then, I'm proud to tell you that Baltimore County has consistently been a leader among all local jurisdictions for number of residents vaccinated. And we are capable, just at our state fairgrounds location, of administering up to 1,000 doses per hour. Now, unfortunately, we get about 5,000 doses per week. So we're waiting for those doses to come. But still, we've had over 167,000 residents vaccinated. That's over 20% of our population. And now over 100,000 of those have already received both of their doses. So that's 12% of our residents have been fully vaccinated. But we know there's more work to be done, and we're committed to doing more, which is why we're expanding access at places like CCBC Essex, which followed our second clinic at the Randallstown Community Center. We also are now partnering with Uber to ensure that those who don't have transportation can get access to any county-run vaccine clinic. In addition, our health department and fire departments are working together to go into those who are homebound and can't leave their homes. And we will keep doing whatever we can to ensure that anyone who wants a vaccine gets one. In the meantime, though, as I mentioned, we ask for your patience because we continue to have a very limited supply. Local government is at the end of the supply chain. And in the meantime, I just encourage everyone to keep doing things that we know work. Help us stop the spread and save lives by wearing your mask and practice social distancing and getting your vaccine when you can. But even amid this crisis in our response, we've continued to strengthen our communities, taking significant actions to reform county government and move our county forward. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish together over these past 2 years. In District 7, we have dedicated nearly $250 million to improve our schools, including $40 million for the now completed Dundalk Elementary School, as well as $52 million for a new Berkshire Elementary School and a new $45 million for a new Colgate Elementary School, both of which are in construction and should be finished soon. We recently completed a $38 million renovation of Patapsco High School, and we have dedicated $50 million for a new Red House Run Elementary, which is in the planning stages and on the border of District 6 and 7. In addition, we have budgeted millions more for maintenance and repairs at schools throughout the district, including $4.8 million to fully air condition Eastern Technical High School. Moving forward, we'll keep doing all that we can to best meet the needs of every student and every community. And we've budgeted millions for improvements to Rec and Parks facilities across District 7. This includes, as the councilman mentioned, already we have $1.1 million budgeted for a much larger project at Sparrows Point Park, which will feature a new community center at Trade Point Atlantic. Baltimore County has also formally made an offer of over $100,000 to buy the North Point Methodist House and Monument with program open space funds. In addition, we've renovated a number of athletic fields, including at Colgate Park, Rosedale Park, Logan Elementary School, and Sandalwood Elementary School. And we're also planning a renovation to the track and field at Solars Point Multipurpose Center. We're proud to have budgeted a record $35 million in our Rec and Parks capital budget for the upcoming year because we also have an obligation to maintain that infrastructure and provide critical services. We have budgeted hundreds of millions of dollars to maintain and improve our water and sewer infrastructure, as well as keeping our roads and bridges safe. On Dundalk Avenue, Public Works has recently completed some streetscaping upgrades, making it ADA compliant with ramps and adding thermoplastic crosswalks. This was a $600,000 county investment. On North Point Road in Edgemere, we're working with the community to actively improve pedestrian safety. And our Public Works and community engagement teams continues to meet with the community to work on that particular project. In our budget next year, we're looking at about $2 million budgeted to pave 18 lane miles of highway in District 7. And our economic and workforce development continues to search for a grocer for Logan Village Shopping Center. At Trade Point Atlantic, as Councilman Crandall mentioned, we have $30 million budgeted for water infrastructure to keep and support that transformational redevelopment. And we remain committed to innovating and doing all that we can to continue meeting our community's need in District 7. And we thank you for your partnership in that process. Speaking of education more generally, in our first 2 years, we've provided back-to-back years of record funding, including $240 million of shovel-ready school construction projects. Now, coupled with state funding, these will allow us to complete the County Schools for Our Future program and begin to further address our long-term needs. But we knew that we needed state support to advance these projects, so that's why we supported, and we're glad to see the General Assembly override the governor's veto of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which is unlocking $462 million of school construction for Baltimore County under the Built to Learn Act. The Blueprint will also help us raise teacher pay, make key investments inside the classroom, and ensure our children have all the resources they need to succeed. And as we continue to strengthen our schools, we are working both with BCPS and a nationally recognized consultant, Canon Design, to develop a long-term plan to address our school construction needs. Through this process and in collaboration with all of you, we're working to form a long-term plan to ensure that every child and every teacher and every family across our county has access to a world-class learning environment. And as we invest in our educational system, we're also doing all that we can to keep our community safe. And I'm proud to report that Baltimore County remains a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. Violent crimes have declined over the past year, and that continues a years-long trend downward. I want to thank Chief Hyatt and the men and women of the Baltimore County Police Department for their efforts. Last year, we shared our update to the crime-fighting strategy in Baltimore County, which included enhanced data and analytics, increasing crime prevention in our hotspot areas, and participating in the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. We are truly starting to see the benefits of having these measures in place. And now you can also track the progress by visiting our new data dashboards that were released just last month. These can be found at baltimorecountymd.gov/bcstat. This summer, we also heard calls for justice across our country, state, and right here in Baltimore County. And so we answered that call, becoming the first jurisdiction in the region to take a major step forward. With the Bipartisan Smart Policing Act, Baltimore County banned the use of chokeholds, required additional de-escalation and implicit bias training, prevented ourselves from hiring officers with prior records of misconduct, and codified many other reforms that were already underway. We also increased transparency in the police department with a data dashboard that tracks the use of force by and complaints against law enforcement, and adopted the county's first ever policy requiring the release of body camera footage. In Baltimore County, we're also tackling the opioid epidemic head on. We continue to have, unfortunately, the second highest number of opioid-related deaths in the state. And while we're not seeing the dramatic spikes of other jurisdictions, we do continue to lose far too many of our loved ones to addictions. That's why in our first year, we hired the county's first ever opioid strategy coordinator, and we began developing a comprehensive plan to address this epidemic. We are now expanding harm reduction services. We are increasing our access to treatment with a new treatment center in Owings Mills and another one in the planning stages. And we're partnering with Shepherd Pratt to develop a hub and spoke model for treatment in Baltimore County. This treatment will be focused on individuals with dually diagnosed disorders, those suffering both with mental health and addiction. And we will continue to look at all options to increase access to treatment in the years ahead. We also want residents to know they deserve a Baltimore County that remains vibrant and livable for generations. So we are working to enact sustainable practices that protect our county and our planet. And we are instilling a culture of sustainability throughout county government. Over the past year, we developed our first greenhouse gas inventory and countywide climate action plan. We restarted our glass recycling program that was suspended back in 2013. And we're pushing new innovations, like at the Eastern Sanitary Landfill, converting methane gas to renewable energy, offsetting an estimated 21 million kilowatt hours of county electric usage every year. And we're committed to increasing funding, as I mentioned before, for rec and parks and agricultural preservation. Our capital budget includes that $35 million for rec and parks, and we doubled our investment in ag preservation to $4 million, with a goal to get to $6 million by 2026. We've also issued an executive order to require new county buildings to be built to LEED standards. We're partnering with BG&E to install 28 electric vehicle charging stations across Baltimore County, and we will continue to do all that we can to build a more sustainable county for future generations. Sustainability's commitment must be reflected also in our approach to transportation. So we are thinking bigger and more creatively about our approach there. In Towson, we're launching the Towson Circulator, the county's first, later this year, and we hope to replicate that across Baltimore County. In Middle River, we recently received our second ever transit-oriented development at Aviation Station, the site of the former Martin Aircraft Manufacturing Plant. To reduce micro-congestion, we're exploring other ways forward, like micro-transit and dense TODs in places where it makes sense. And we're committed to maintaining our roadways to keep our residents safe with continued record funding for road resurfacing and traffic calming. We know that infrastructure is more than just transportation. And so one area where we know we have to do more are around the policies governing our water system, which are decades old and in need of reform. So we're partnering with Baltimore City for a comprehensive review. And I look forward to working with Mayor Scott to modernize those critical services and the challenges that have been identified there. Another area in need of action is waste disposal. The trash going to our landfills has increased from 300 tons per day to 1,400 tons per day. So in October, we created a solid waste working group to develop a 5-year solid waste plan. So we gathered input from community members about how to improve our trash and recycling. and the work group is currently working to finalize its recommendations with its report coming out in the near future. We're also committed to doing all that we can to keep our communities sustainable and vibrant, and we're proud of the work we're doing to support our communities and main streets, supporting in our young people and investing in our neighborhoods. On the Summer Youth Employment Program, even amid a pandemic, we had a 44% increase from 194 participants to 280, giving our young people new experiences, skills, and connections. And we plan to grow this program further in the years ahead. We're planning the construction of 2 new PAL centers in Rosedale and Middle River. And across Baltimore County, we're continuing to make investments to revitalize our main streets. Towson was named a Main Street Maryland affiliate in the past year. Reisterstown has been named our county's second Maryland Main Street. Catonsville, Music City, Maryland became our first ever arts and entertainment district. And Trade Point Atlantic in District 7 continues to breathe new life into Sparrows Point as one of the biggest e-commerce hubs in the country. I'm also proud that we've been leading a county that is more open, transparent, and accountable than ever before, passing unprecedented ethics reform, including lobbying reform, a now successful charter amendment to establish public financing of local elections, and creating Baltimore County's first ever Inspector General. Last year, we took a number of steps to heighten that accountability, launching BC Stat, our data-driven performance management system, creating those data dashboards to increase accountability in county services, creating Open Checkbook, which was an expansion of our open budget platform that allows you now to go and track county spending down to the contract, working with the councilman and his colleagues to move work sessions later in the day, establishing a 311 line, and creating an office of community engagement to ensure that every district has a dedicated representative. Earlier tonight, you met or saw Pete Kumis, who is our Director of Community Engagement and your 7th District representative. More recently, we launched the county's first ever enterprise-wide operational efficiency review. This is an opportunity to rethink government operations, improve our services, and also find meaningful savings where we can, continuing to make Baltimore County as open, accessible, and transparent as ever, especially as we head into our recovery from COVID-19. Because after facing an unprecedented crisis like this, our region has to work together to pick up the pieces and rebuild. And as we rebuild, we need to remember that we have to make a concerted effort to address the disparities that have always been there. We can't just rebuild our economy, we have to improve upon it. And our recovery must be holistic. So we want to take bold actions to strengthen our business community, support our residents, and address inequities in our communities. So as we recover, we plan to put an emphasis on supporting our small and independent businesses on our main streets and target our resources to businesses that were hardest hit, like restaurants, movie theaters, and event venues. We know that some industries like hospitality and tourism bore the brunt, so we're really thinking creatively about how to support them. And we'll continue to work with regional partners to develop a robust tourism strategy that highlights our homegrown assets right here in Baltimore County. As we build out programs, we're putting all options on the table to support our businesses, whether it's leveraging loan guarantees, investing in our main streets and business corridors, or expanding our small business service center. Because recovery works best when it's done in partnership and with an open dialogue. So we look forward to hearing from the business community and from you about ideas you'd like to have us explore in the years ahead. When this pandemic ends, we are resolved to come back stronger than ever with family supporting jobs. That's why we believe in investing in the Job Connector program and the College Promise program at CCBC, making college more affordable and free to more of our people. And as we continue, we'll also continue our efforts to help residents meet their basic needs with things like continued eviction prevention and food distribution efforts. So in April, we'll be introducing the upcoming fiscal 22 budget to the county council. The county councilman, Councilman Crandall and his colleagues have until May 31st to approve it. And as you know, you should be all pros at this now. You have an important role to play. So I look forward to, alongside Councilman Crandall, hearing your priorities for the budget in the year ahead. Together, we can set our shared priorities, plan for recovery, and ensure we're positioned to come out stronger on the other side. So with that, I will turn things over to Amanda, who will open the floor. And we'll start, I believe, by going through some of the questions who have gone come in advance, and then we'll go back and forth between those submitted in advance and those who are coming in live tonight. So thank you again for your attendance and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you. The first comes in from Gloria, and it's not even a question. She just says, thank you for the opportunity for us to submit our ideas and FY22 budget inquiries. Edith asks, along with a few other people, the pandemic shows that trails, parks, and green spaces are in high demand for walking, biking, hiking, and enjoyment of nature. From what I can see in the county capital budget, there is little money for the acquisition and improvement of new land for pocket parks and trails in communities inside the Erdel like mine. I've also learned that there are problems with the county's open space law. The law has a giant loophole that allows developers to avoid paying open space fees to the county and provide off-site enhancements, picnic tables, gazebos, and basketball poles.
Gloria and Edie, thank you so much for your leadership in our communities. I want to assure you that we actually are probably more than ever before really pushing to spend our open space acquisitions and looking at these issues and partnering with NeighborSpace, because I am a fervent believer that rec and open space drive quality of life and value in our communities. I will let Director Raj Johnson from Rec and Parks speak to the ways in which we're pushing Rec and Parks to do more open space, and then maybe Director Lafferty can speak a bit to the changes we're working on relative to some of the open space laws that we're really sort of pushing forward in Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. County Exec, and good evening. Thank you for that question, Ms. Edie and Ms. Gloria. Excellent question. You are, in fact, 100% correct. Baltimore County had a 224% increase in park usership, and that's based on the Google COVID-19 mobility data. We had the largest increase than anyone in the whole entire state. So our parks are well loved. And the county executive, along with Madam AO, have hosted weekly, I think now we're down to bi-weekly meetings, but weekly meetings initially for program open space. We had a large unexpended amount. There's a lot of red tape, of course, when you're trying to acquire properties, but the county executive and the whole entire team has moved diligently and deliberately to help cut down some of that red tape so that we can expend our program open space funding that we have for acquisition. And we have some parks that are coming on board now. I think we started that probably about 9 months ago, if memory serves me correctly, and we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. We have some properties that have gone to county council for approval to be able to purchase. We still have a list, and so we're looking at that list. We're constantly evaluating as new properties come up. We're also looking at that as well. So we have money in the budget for that from program open space, and also the county executive has been very deliberate too with our trails and with the parks from a holistic standpoint along the entire county. So what we're doing is we're getting ready to embark on a new master planning process. The last master plan that we can find dates from 1950, which, as I always say, was a very good year. However, it was 71 years ago. So it's time for some new updates. So that will be a whole entire transparent process with community input, determining where we should have trails, perhaps how many miles of trails we should have for a county of our size with a population of our size, how many acres of park land, how many regional parks, neighborhood parks, pocket parks, all of that. So that will be our roadmap for the next several years, and it will provide standards and goals for us to be able to achieve and be able to measure our progress. So thank you very much for that question.
Mr. County Executive, if I may add on to what Director Johnson's just said, but really address the open space issue. We're very aware of the concerns and recognize that under our adequate public facilities ordinance, access to local open space is really critical. We have been working on a new fee structure for those who are able to seek a waiver of the fee, which is permitted under county law, and hope to get that to the county council very soon. We've also been revising, or revisions been made to the manual for the application of open space, but probably more significantly, as we will be convening a work group to look at the current code and regulations and whether or not they're sufficient to meet not only the needs of the communities now, but looking forward and looking ahead. Finding small pocket parks in those kind of spaces is difficult, although I know that the Turner Station Conservation Team has been working with Neighbor Space and has found a location for a new little park, which Gloria and Edie, I congratulate you on working with them to come up with a nice space. And we're always interested in identifying these little community serving locations that may not be quite a POS acquisition, but might be something that we could take a look at. So we are going to be moving ahead to alter or at least to examine the criteria and standards by which we have currently been using for open space. And I welcome your input going forward.
And I'll just add that Councilman Crandall should feel, as we walk through, feel free to jump in at any point, Todd, if you have anything that you want to add beyond what the directors have too. Amanda?
Jody asks, we still need transparency at the Baltimore County animal shelters. Why was an offer of a free expert to do an analysis of the shelter turned down?
Well, Jody, thank you for the question. As I mentioned in the presentation, we have prided ourselves on our openness and transparency efforts. I cannot speak to the specific offer since I'm unaware of it, but I believe Deputy Director Leicester is on.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening, Mr. CE. So several years ago, the County Council passed legislation that created a Baltimore County Animal Commission. We would encourage anyone that has recommendations to contact the commission. They have open meetings and would be glad to talk to you about the changes that have been done in animal services and what they envision for the future at animal services. The commission information, I believe, is on the county website.
Lee asks, how much money has been spent on the pilot rat program to date? What is your budget for our PRP for the next fiscal year? And how successful has this program been? And how was that success measured?
Thanks for the question. We are proud to have been supporting these pilot programs to go after and do more to help with rat eradication. We also are proud of the ways that we're starting to be more data informed in our work with groups like our BC Stat team. I think that Director Gutwald is on from PAI who could speak to the code enforcement piece here and answer your question there, Lee.
I am. Mr. County Executive, thank you. We spend somewhere between $300,000 and $450,000 a year on the eradication program. Currently, we're on the path to spend about the same amount, and we're budgeted for that for next year as well. So we have about 23 different neighborhoods. We spend in each one of those neighborhoods between $16,000 and $20,000 for each program, depending upon the size of that neighborhood. To measure the effectiveness, we don't really have quantitative data on that. It's more anecdotal. We're trying to get better at that because we are going to look towards the new year using different technology on the eradication program. So a lot of times it's sort of measured by the number of complaints and then sort of a walkthrough after the treatment has been done in any given one neighborhood. Some of the new technologies that are out there are investigating the locations of some of the major nesting areas for the rats and being more focused and concentrated on hitting them at the source rather than just setting out sort of baits to try and eradicate the rats. So that's sort of where we are, trying to look towards new technology and better effectiveness. And as the county executive said, we're trying to scrub more data to get more information so we can do a little more performance measures as we implement more of these programs. Thank you.
And I'll just add, one of our recent BC Stat reviews, one of the things we talked to Director Gutwald about was the fact that we could look at things like community complaints, and if in fact that, these, as opposed to the baseline, have driven down concerns about the rat complaints. But certainly that's why these budget hearings are important, because if communities that have them want to keep them, we need to hear that. And if communities that don't have the pilot are interested in having it applied to them, we certainly want to hear that too.
Johnny, if I can chime in. So this program, if you remember last year's town hall, I forget who I put on the spot. May have been Mr. Gutwald's predecessor, but I said, please do not cut the rat eradication program. And we heard from several speakers that evening that said, please keep up what you're doing, because it's actually, it's one of those times where a government program worked, and we may not have the data that could drive future decisions yet. But I know in our office, we were going from when we first got in office in 2015, maybe 3 or 4 calls or emails a day. And now I think we're down to, don't quote me on this, but I think we're down to maybe 1 a month with a rat complaint. So I think that the program is working. I'm anticipating the budget to see that that the program is still budgeted. I don't, Mr. Gutwald, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned the almost $400,000 for eradication. I'm not sure if that includes the 2-day trash pickup in the pilot program. I think those numbers are probably separate. Am I correct on that?
I believe so. That's
Yeah.
just treatment and maintenance. So going back into the neighborhoods. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you could use the metrics as the number, as the county executive said, the number of complaints that maybe Mr. Chris Kumis is fielding, and certainly that our office is fielding are way, way down, which to me is evidence of the fact that the program is working. So just wanted to add that. And I do appreciate all the work that went into with the head of code enforcement, Mr. Van Domelen, and his team, all the work that went into designing that program. And it's just, like I said, it's working. Let's keep it funded, and let's continue our knowledge of the Norwegian brown rat, which I know more about than I ever wanted to know.
I'll just say, again, to the councilman's point, this was one of the issues that came up a lot last year's budget town hall. And I think hearing so strongly from the councilman and the community was helpful, even as we had to craft that $100 million of reductions. We knew that this was one of the things we wanted to try to avoid. And fortunately, we were able to avoid having to cut it.
And Mr. CE, this is Stacey Rogers again. Yes, Councilmember Crandall, the second pickup is indeed budgeted within DPW, and it is indeed there. And we also, over the year, we saw a significant reduction of complaints coming in, even from trash collectors. Reduction in sightings of rodents as they picked up trash in this last year.
Awesome. Lakia.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Looking to get more information on the Day Village project. I'm not looking to have my people displaced and the area gentrified. Turner Station is and should remain a historic Black community with its rich heritage. She also asks, what's the budget for trash removal? We sometimes go a week without trash removal.
Timely follow-up to the trash question that we just sort of touched on tangentially through the rat eradication pilot. But Lakia, I can assure you that we are not looking to displace anyone from their homes or their communities. I believe that what's happening, and I'll have, I believe Director Lafferty can speak to that again, is I think that there is just some investments being made, and we're looking to, retain the residents of Day Village as well. And we have Administrative Officers Rogers, as well as, I believe, Director Walker, who can speak to trash removal budgets and, what to do if there's any issues with trash being picked up, because you should have a weekly trash pickup.
So did the CAO want to comment or no? You know, I have to admit, I don't know enough about the Day Village effort right now, but I'm certainly going to look into it and get back to the individual that asked the question. It's an important issue. I know we are doing some other work down in Turner Station, and recognize that quality housing is important everywhere. So let me defer and get back and answer that question for her.
Mr. C, I can chime in as the former director of planning. We have been in conversations with the landowner. We are looking to do a partner deal with renovations and rehabilitation in the Day Village community. It was a discussion we were having with them prior to COVID, and then COVID kind of hit and it kind of slowed down. So, but we are looking into doing some, you know, major rehabilitation partnership with the Day Village community. So more to come.
But doing that without just dislocating and displacing residents.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. In fact, some of the programs that we are doing down there are some of the homes will be market rate and they won't be 60 or 30% of the AMI because the individuals wouldn't qualify. So in order to keep the people in the community, that's why it's going to be sort of a mixed income project.
And then, Stacy, do you want to speak to the trash, or Director Walker, do you want to talk to the budget and sort of how folks can register any concerns about not having trash picked up in a given week?
Sure, sir.
Go ahead, Director Walker, then I can chime in.
Sure. In regards to trash pickup, you are correct, Mr. County Executive. Everyone should have a weekly pickup. That is how the schedule is organized. I would venture out to say that if they're not having a weekly pickup, that they email Pete so that he knows that, and he can report that to solid waste, and then we'll get a response out there as quickly as possible. But everyone should have a 1 week pickup as it relates to their trash. In regards to our budget, I would say you've done a record budget impact as it relates to what we have available for collection. We do about $32 million a year in collection for solid waste pickup. So, and I would also like to say to the resident that we are also doing an end-to-end study on our solid waste. We did have a solid waste work group. We are looking at innovative ways of solid waste pickup and solid waste diversion. So we are looking at solid waste in the county as a whole to try to make sure that we are doing things better than how we did it yesterday. But if there is a problem with your weekly pickup, please let us know, and we will get some of our supervisors out to figure out why you're not getting your weekly pickup.
And Mr. CE, I would just follow up with that to say the customer service is a big part of our effort. And we've worked very, very closely with the hauler community here in the county, ensuring that we are establishing expectations of what we need from them, what the community needs and expects. And I would say that the hauler community is very receptive. So again, as Ms. Walker said, if there are any concerns, we encourage citizens to let us know through their, in your case, through Mr. Kumis, but we are working with the hauler community. And this coming year, we will be working even closer in terms of setting expectations of pickup, cleanliness in communities, expectations of trash haulers as they enter communities in terms of trash cans where they should be placed after they're emptied. And I do say that we have a receptive audience, that the hauler community is working with us.
Very good.
I am going to ask a couple of questions that have come in from Facebook Live. The Sparrows Point North Point Historical Society asks, what happened to the bill 9518? And then why didn't the county fight for the 70-acre Penwood fields?
Well, I want to thank the Society for all of its work and its partnership to really preserve a storied history here in Baltimore County and in Southeast Baltimore County. I believe that bill is the one that funded the infrastructure at Trade Point Atlantic. What I can tell you is that prior to my election, and this obviously wasn't the councilman who drove this, the prior administration before ours actually struck the deal, introduced the legislation, and it was poised for passage to sort of pave the way for the redevelopment we've seen there. And in the deal that was initially struck or the package created, there was neither WMBE requirements nor project labor agreements with our friends in labor, and there were also no open space or field requirements as part of it. So when I came to office, it was, again, as I said, just before that bill was before the council for final approval. And so we pushed for as much space as we could get. And what we were able to secure was the I believe 17 or so acres that will be Sparrows Point Park. So it wasn't a question of fighting for the Penwood Field at the point at which we had an opportunity. We pushed for as much as we could get for the community. I applaud Trade Point for working with us to give us that, given that they didn't have to. But ultimately, the Penwood Fields, while I would love to have seen them used, are privately held, and we don't have active control over as a county.
Amy from Facebook asks, what is the plan or goal to recruit more police officers?
I will turn that straight over to Chief Hyatt, who I know is working hard with us to recruit and retain our police department and our police officers.
Well, first of all, that's a great question. Thank you very much. We are very focused on continuing to push for qualified candidates that reflect the communities that we serve. And some of the things that we're doing now are really focusing on some innovative strategies. We have an independent group that is working with us to actually assess our entire process, from the manner in which we're recruiting all the way through the beginning of our employment process. And over the next couple of months, we're going to be able to start implementing some of their recommendations. You may have already heard some of our radio ads on multiple radio stations, some of our billboards that are going to be going up pretty soon. We've been involved in some virtual recruitment events. I believe we had another one today. And we are also very focused on our local schools and really doing a better job recruiting from our local schools. So I am very excited about some of the things that are going to come up in the upcoming months. Right now, it is not the easiest time to recruit for law enforcement. And we recognize the fact that we are competing with other police departments across the region for each qualified candidate. So we're going to continue to do the right things to attract people to our department, to bring them in the door, and then to retain them.
Larry from Turner Station asks, I am a lifelong resident of the historic community of Turner Station and board member of the community group Turner Station Conservation Teams. First, I would like to thank you for addressing the traffic calming issues on Sollers Point Road and Avon Beach, as well as eliminating the double yellow line on Sollers Point Road. Those issues went back to the year 2007 and were obviously ignored by other administrations. However, there are some aspects of our requests for safety that have not fully been met. Specifically, a four-way stop sign at Avondale Road and Sollers Point Road, painted crosswalk and beware pedestrian signs at the same intersection. A $35 million renovation is underway at Lyons Home. Now would be the perfect time to include traffic calming in conjunction with that spending. This renovation work is outstanding. I have also requested Lyons Homes Management to submit an application. The Main Street entrance to Turner Station is a long straight away from Dundalk Ave to Mount Olive Road, over 1 mile straight. Drivers routinely exceed 50 miles per hour. Traffic calming for this stretch of road was my original request in 2007. This stretch is perfect for creative traffic calming, such as an island with vegetation. Finally, Avondale Road. In the last 6 months, drivers have lost control and driven through the chain link fence and onto the walking track. Luckily, there were no pedestrians or children present. Lastly, flooding in the 300 block of Solars Point Road, Chestnut Street, Pine Street, and Oak Street continue to be a disaster for homeowners. We have a coalition working on this issue, including Army Corps of Engineers, PNC, Maryland Insurance Administration, and Baltimore County. We urge you to follow the recommendation, which may include a construction of a pumping station. Historically, I have documentation that shows the conversation that Turner Station members have had with the engineers during construction of our Solars Point Multipurpose Center in 2011, when they promised that the 700-foot pipe would be eliminated and our stormwater would be connected to the 72-inch main on Dundalk Ave. Instead, they added 2 new inlets on Solars Point Road and Chestnut Street and connected the new inlets to the same undersized 700-foot pipe.
Thanks, Larry. I know that Pete was very happy to work with Director Walker and address that longstanding concern about speed control. That's our philosophy generally, is we want to just try to work with the community. So I know that the Office of Community Engagement, to Director Chris Kumis, Director Walker, we'll look forward to continuing to address all of those needs, both on traffic calming, but also water and sewer infrastructure. Directors Chris Kumis and Walker, if you just want to give me a thumbs up or a yes, sir, that's correct, we can probably follow up directly with Larry on that one.
Yes, sir, that is correct. Mm-hmm.
We've been communicating back and forth with those issues, so they're already in the hopper.
Very good. Thank you.
Jeanette asks, I was wondering if there is any possibility of allotting funds to help improve the area of Sparrows Point Road past the intersection of North Point Boulevard and Sparrows Point Road. This area looks like a dumping ground and is getting worse. The bar that has been closed for years looks like a junkyard. Homeowners tried to take care of their homes, and we could use some help to improve the area.
So I believe that our Public Works Department is aware of their portion of it, and Director Walker can correct me if I'm wrong. And then if there are any code enforcement issues, Director Chris Kumis will be working with Director Gutwald to address any opportunities for citing businesses or homeowners who aren't doing their part to keep their community up to code. So I think that is the case, but Pete, if you or others want to chime in on that particular question as well.
I believe it's a I believe it's a two-part two-department issue. One is code enforcement and one is DPW, but we will communicate between the three of us to get that issue resolved, sir.
Just from Director Walker, we have been talking with Director Pete, and he speaks to me. So we have been talking, and we are going to work directly with Permanent as well to see if there's something else that we can do in order to clean up the area. But I am aware, and we will have some teams out to look at the area, sir.
Thank you.
Tim from Edgemere asks, I'm active in my community and I love that I live in a quiet waterfront neighborhood. Over the past few years, our community has been burdened with an increase of traffic noise and especially truck traffic. This is a direct result of Trade Point Atlantic. While I support the development of Trade Point and often defended them when issues came up in the community, I have to say this noise level is now affecting many people in the community and it is getting worse. We are desperately seeking some sort of relief that will keep the truck traffic to a minimum through the community as well as some kind of solution for the noise. MDOT did a sound survey at my request, but they advised me that any type of sound wall would need to have funds contributed by the community.
Johnny, if you want me to chime in, I'm pretty sure I know the Tim that wrote in. He's contacted our office, and I know Tim pretty well. So there should not be trucks from Trade Point Atlantic either coming out of Trade Point Atlantic or going into Trade Point Atlantic going down North Point Road into Edgemere. There's no reason for those trucks to do it. So unless they're trying to get a shortcut through, I'm not sure. But one of the things that I know that TPA has talked about, and that they're working with SHA and Baltimore County, I believe, and Ms. Walker can correct me if I'm wrong, is better signage on the state highways heading into both North Point Boulevard, Peninsula, and Bethlehem Boulevard. Better signage, wayfinding signage. I think that's part of the long-term plan. Because if it's the Tim I'm thinking of, he's more in the interior of Edgemere, and there's really no reason for trucks to be on that road. And maybe this is a topic that we can request the truck traffic work group to address, because as I mentioned at the outset of the meeting, that one of the offshoots of such a successful logistics hub and the growth of the port, it's great for commerce, it's great for job creation, it's great for increasing our tax base. However, the offshoot is that we have more trucks than ever, and we have illegal trucking throughout the Southeast. Certainly in Dundalk, we know the hot spots where those hot spots are, and I know the work group is working on that. So I believe that's what Tim is talking about, is trucks coming down North Point Road, either illegally or they're just lost because Waze or Google Maps sends them that way, because the road names aren't. It can be confusing, I think, to drivers that aren't local. So hopefully we can get that addressed, and then long term, the wayfinding signage heading into the site will be a lot better and a lot easier to understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add on to what the councilman said there. So Todd's right. Not just the signage, but that was sort of the purpose of why we had the legislation passed in Annapolis on the truck traffic issue. It's why we created the work group. We're actively finalizing the maps that these folks should be working. We're working with Maryland Motor Truck to give them GPS that is relevant to their routes and not just sort of the generic GPSs that might be used. And then ultimately looking at even sort of enforcement mechanisms on things like truck traffic cameras. On the sound wall question, I believe this is, and Director Walker can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is a state, typically the state is the one that funds them. So in addition to the work of just keeping trucks out of residential neighborhoods, to the extent we might still need that, we are happy to push alongside you for the state to invest in those barrier walls if they are in fact still needed after this other work that we can do and are doing locally.
And Johnny, I just got a message from someone that we need to be, and this is one of the challenges in dealing with truck traffic. So there are some large trucks that head down North Point Road because they're delivering to Food Lion or they're delivering to the restaurants in Miller's Island. So, and that makes enforcement a challenge, and it makes the whole issue a challenge. But if we can keep the trucks that shouldn't be there off of North Point Road, I think that we can answer Tim's or provide a solution to Tim's problem.
That's right. Thanks.
We have had 13 residents from Boston Court write in. They say, please help Boston Court. We are having issues with rodents in the trash collection area and would like speed limit signs along with traffic calming. Several residents have suggested that we invite the county executive to visit our community for a walking tour with our residents. That way he can see firsthand what they're dealing with.
Well, thank you very much. I have been very proud to be doing a lot of these neighborhood walks pre-COVID and look forward to getting back out with you and others after this is over. So certainly we'll work with the Office of Community Engagement and to try to find a time to come out and walk alongside you. And I believe that Pete Kriskumis has also already walked and understood some of those issues. So we are happy to bring some of our folks out to have those direct conversations about all the ways that we can continue to support Boston Courts and all of our communities across Baltimore County.
Johnny, I'd like to take this as an opportunity to one issue that is unsolved in Boston Courts is the way that the community was designed is not conducive for efficient trash pickup, nor is it conducive for folks to put out their trash in an efficient way, so it's not piling up on each other. So what I would hope with a new director of DPW, Ms. Walker, I guess my request is that we take another look at what might be done with the solid waste disposal trash pickup at Boston Courts, whether it's dumpsters, whether it's something. It's not the easiest situation with the way that the community was designed and laid out, but I think with a new administration and new eyes on the issue, that we might be able to come to a solution.
Director Walker, I was just going to jump in real quick. I've spoken to Mr. McBride, and it is on my notepad here to communicate with you tomorrow. There is a plan in effect that Tim Dunn was working up prior to him leaving Waste Management. So I will reach out to you tomorrow to see if we can locate that plan and get back in contact with Mr. McBride to enact whatever plan Waste Management had in the works for that trash pickup.
I appreciate that. And Councilman Crandall, I will get with you by next week after we've had an opportunity to look at the plan. And I understand that the community has a dead end street, so there may be some adjustments that we need to make, but give me until next week and I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Amy and quite a few others from the DRC wrote in and say, on behalf of Dundalk Renaissance, I want to thank you for increasing the county's support for our organization in FY21 and a request that you continue supporting us at $100,000 for FY22. They have asked to support many of the initiatives we are supporting, and I'm not going to read them all off to you, but I will go to some live questions. Tim from Facebook asks, can we designate more money for more code inspectors? Our communities are in need of more code enforcement.
So there actually was a code enforcement task force that we convened earlier this year that recommended just that. Hearing from you is helpful to, as we set our budget priorities in the year ahead. So the answer is, as we review our budget and to the extent we have additional resources, we certainly can and will be exploring that option. So I appreciate you raising it as something you're interested in.
And Nancy asks on Facebook, when can we require mobile home communities to recycle?
I believe that would require either a state legislative change and or a potentially, I don't know if the council would be able to do it individually or not, but that's something we are happy to take a look at in terms of whether what's preventing it and what might enable it. I'm not as familiar on that particular issue, but I'd be happy to follow up with you.
Donna asks, does the budget include restoring roads within our communities? Does the budget include bringing back bulk pickup?
The answer is it does include restoring roads within our community. I think District 7, actually, if you look over the historical investments in road resurfacing this past year, it might be among the largest investments that the district has seen in some time. The needs out there are great, and we can never fully address all of the roads in a single year, but my commitment is to continue with the record funding we've been providing to try to meet as much of that need as we possibly can. Director Walker has come to me with an idea, which I've supported, to have a more transparent and open process for both scoring and sharing scores so that we can be more equitable in how we address the roadway needs across Baltimore County. So I look forward to having that system rolling out. And there was a second part of that question, Amanda, that I'm now blanking on.
Bulk trash.
Oh, the bulk trash. Yes, thank you. And the administrative officer is leading a work group that I believe included that as a recommendation. It is not currently funded, but something that we can and will be exploring in the year ahead. I believe that's right, Madam Mayo.
And Johnny, this will be the 7th year in a row that I'm going to advocate for bulk, the restoration of the bulk trash pickup program. We've been at it for quite some time.
It's 2 votes for bulk trash, at least.
Okay. Lakia asks, thanks for the opportunity to share our observed community needs in the Dundalk and Turner Station area. We have been providing direct educational, workforce educational, and social services to the community for almost a year. Going door to door to ensure residents know their rights and are aware of what resources are available to them. Number 1, she asked for youth recreation at Sellers Point. The community center does not offer competitive sports, nor does it provide access to the arts, like water sports or rowing. The indoor basketball court is accessible at times, but often the center is closed if school is closed. Folks expect neighborhood parents to volunteer their time and talents while fighting to survive, which is completely wrong, especially since several Baltimore County rec centers receive funding to host these programs. Poor housing conditions at Day Village townhomes is a known issue on private property. The state provided funding to the owners to support renovations, but no work has been done, while neighboring Lions Home has been renovating for some time now in 2021 with a few grant dollars. We need free housing, legal assistance there. There is one organization, Free Legal Aid, that was willing to help residents of Day Village. All others communicated they only had funding for Baltimore City. There's a significant need for free legal housing assistance to help heirs with getting deeds compliant to sell or repair homes in Turner Station. The only organization currently who is funding to provide these services is St. Ambrose, and their list for assistance is out of this world. She also asked for free bulk trash pickup as needed and free transportation at all Baltimore County Department of Economic and Workforce Development centers, as well as all Baltimore County community colleges during working hours.
There's a lot there. I will try to unpack it as quickly as possible, and we will also have our agencies follow up because we could probably spend a lot of time just on that question. We are committed to more recreational needs and more equity, and Director Johnson, maybe I'll let you speak to that, and then we'll have the other agencies follow up. But we really are focusing on equity and access in rec and parks, and so I'll let Director Johnson speak to that. Director Hickey is in fact working on things like housing conditions and access, including aid, and he can follow up with that information. I know that another bulk trash vote there. And, transportation for economic and workforce is something that I'm working with Director. Actually, I'll let Director Howie jump in after Director Johnson, since he hasn't had a bite at the apple yet, to talk about all the work that we're trying to do to be more data driven and go to the places where the needs are and to meet the needs for economic development, recovery, and workforce development. So Director Johnson, Director Howie.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. That was an excellent question. Yes, and I'm going to keep mentioning 1950 because that's when, a little bit before then, actually, our rec councils kind of started and said they are based on a model from the 1950s. And so family work habits and families have changed tremendously since the 1950s, but we still have the same model. So we're going through somewhat of a renaissance. The county executive did mention equity and programming. And so our team at Recreation and Parks has looked at all of the programming that the recreation councils offer, and they do an amazing job. But they're also doing the best that they can with what they have and with the volunteers in the community. And so what we're finding currently is that your zip code does determine your recreational amenities. So we're working diligently to try and change that. So we are in the process of creating memorandums of understanding with all of the rec councils that will kind of delineate everyone's lanes. So we'll say rec councils, here's what you committed to do. And we'll say recreation and parks, here's what we're committing to do. And so we can fill in those gaps. We can look at the competitive sports. We can look at the what we like to call rec sports as well. And we can also infuse science, technology, engineering, arts, and math into the programming. So we'll take some time. When you're talking about budgets, we are the least funded recreation and parks department in the state. And that's based on our population. But absolutely, the best news is that our county executive has given us the most increases and most funding that our department has seen, and ever since my team can remember. And the county executive has been very dedicated to that, and we're looking at it. It's something that we look at the goals and the matrix every budget season with the county executive, and we're moving the needle. We're moving it as fast as possible. The county executive always tasks us with spending other people's money, so to not be a burden on the taxpayers here in the county. So we've been challenged to do that as well. As Councilman Crandall also mentioned, we're looking at some alternative funding sources. And I'm happy to say the money that we submitted to be able to use for CARES funding, the county executive approved an overwhelming amount of those dollars to help us resource up. So the tides are changing for recreation in the county, and that's due wholly because of the commitment that the county executive has. So we are moving the needle. We're happy. We want to work with you, and we want to look at it from a holistic and equitable standpoint. So thank you so much.
Hey, and Mr. County Executive, thank you very much for this opportunity. If there's one thing that this pandemic has reinforced for our Department of Economic and Workforce Development, is that we have to alter the way we deliver our services. We have really ramped up our ability to provide training and consultations virtually. So I encourage you to continue to access our website and seek those opportunities. But more importantly, to your question about transportation, we've taken that one head on and have sought and obtained additional funding from the state to purchase mobile career centers. And the intent is to have these large vehicles that are fully equipped as you would see if you were to walk into one of our workforce offices, full with computers and all the resources that you would need. The intent is to drive them to where the population are, where the people are. And we expect those to be purchased and online late summer. But that is a very tangible, meaningful change in how we are operating and putting our services on the road to where they are needed the most. Mr. County Executive?
Sheila asked, I live in Dundalk, North Point Village. I believe I'm in the 7th district. With that said, I'd really appreciate in the town hall meeting if you could please address unemployment from the Maryland Department of Labor. I've been waiting for my unemployment to get here since September of 2020. No one has gotten back to me, even though I am active in their system. They have not released any funds.
Well, Sheila, you are in the 7th district, and I am so sorry that you have been struggling with unemployment insurance challenges. It is, I think it's important that people know that this is a wholly state-run and organized system. It has been a failure to far too many of our residents. We have seen and tried to triage and support people just like you to get through it. So if our team has not been in touch, we will be following up with you to try to navigate that system. But a lot of Marylanders have been failed by the state this past year and the unemployment system. So I'm sorry that you've gone through that, but we are happy to advocate alongside you to try to get Maryland to support you in all the ways that you deserve.
Shirley asks, will money be placed in the budget for Dundalk Heritage Trail?
Yes, Shirley. We plan to do all that we can to get this Heritage Trail done and moving forward. I actually want you to know that I had a meeting recently with Mr. Robinson personally and asked him to come back to the table after the prior administration scrapped this project. I am personally committed to seeing it through. It was something that was personal to me as a delegate representing District 6, which is basically District 7 on the council. And it's a passion and a priority of mine. The county is already, 3/4 of the way done. We have to finish it. It's a priority. We will make sure that we have the resources to get it done. But thank you for raising it, because we shouldn't lose sight of it. It's still an important need and will help revitalize Old Dundalk, and will, I think, be helpful for truck traffic for the St. Helena community. So thank you for your continued leadership there.
Lynn Wood asks, our number one issue or concern is housing and affordable housing for the majority of our residents. Housing is the cornerstone of many communities to bring quality of life and growth to Baltimore County.
Totally agree, Linwood, and so proud of the work that we're doing, whether it's the rental assistance to providing more affordable housing to our hardworking residents. And Terry Hickey, do you want to just introduce yourself as someone who's leading a lot of really important work in housing and community development across Baltimore County?
It'd be my pleasure. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. And you have already talked about the rental assistance program. I think the core of any good affordable housing program is keeping families in the homes that they already have. And so at your direction, we've set up a robust eviction prevention program that's going to continue on for the foreseeable future. We're also working on a foreclosure prevention program so that we can address the needs of homeowners as the fallout from the pandemic continues. And then at your direction, you know that we are out there looking to develop more affordable housing on a community by community basis, depending on what the local needs are. In our agreement with HUD, the county is looking to help see the construction of over 1,000 units of housing by 2024, including a number of accessible units. And I encourage anyone listening to this, if you've got thoughts on housing needs in your community, to please reach out and contact me. Again, I'm Terry Hickey at Health and Human Services, overseeing housing and community development.
Thank you, Terry. Chris on YouTube asks, Mr. County Executive, what is the plan for spending the funds provided to the county from the federal government, both from the CARES Act and the recently passed relief law?
Great question. I will let Director Blades or Deputy Director Reed just introduce themselves, but what I can tell you is that we have done a very good job of leveraging those CARES dollars to really make sure that we are providing the services, the testing, the PPE, the contact tracing, the vaccine distribution without really impacting our budget at all. We also have used it to provide those relief programs, rental assistance, business support, investments across our community, the food distribution efforts. And so we have a plan to spend down the rest of the federal CARES funding, which has to be expired by, that will be spent by the end of our current fiscal year, which will be July 1st. And then we are actively working. You met Director Leonard Howie, who's leading our efforts to bring together business and community, all the needs across all of our agencies to come up with a strong, robust, complete plan for the additional money coming through the passage of the American Recovery Act, which will be spent in addition to our upcoming budget that we're talking about now in terms of general funds. So,
Mr. County Executive, I'll just say hi, and I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a fully comprehensive package, in my belief.
Leah asks, what are we doing with the abandoned house issue in our communities? One example is a house where the owner has passed for some time. The taxes have not been paid in 10 years. Between the taxes owed and the non-tax liens, the total owed on this house is over $33,000. The non-lien tax amount appears to be code enforcement fines. There was never an estate established on this property, and the house has sat vacant for many years. The community is forced to deal with this house continuously. It is falling down. The property is not kept up and has to be turned into code multiple times a year.
I think Director Gutwald is on it. And Leah, I know that you had a few other questions as well regarding code enforcement and fines and bulk trash pickup. Another vote for that. But Director Gutwald, do you want to talk about the abandoned house issue? And then we can also follow up with some of the other questions that Leah had tonight.
Sure, Mr. CE. That's a good question. These are issues that we're trying to grapple with in PAI. I am looking towards, yes, we continue to put liens. And I've had this conversation with the law office as well as the county executive about what are the next steps. We get to a certain point and we get stuck with, abandoned houses and follow up and securing those homes or getting rid of those homes. So we're looking at additional legal mechanisms to move those along, if you will, move the needle on those sort of issues. But there are limits that we can do with property rights. And so we're looking at some of those legal mechanisms to encourage people to move along and get those properties, taken care of and improve the neighborhood and that property specifically. Code enforcement, we've taken it so far. We're looking at the next steps to move that along, and we're also looking at abandoned homes and the inventory of that. We talked about our data measurements. Those are some of the other things that we'll look to use and how we can put strategies in place to address those more proactively than reactively. Thank you.
Rob asks, I serve as chair of the Baltimore County Land Trust Alliance, which advocates for open space conservation on behalf of the Land Preservation Trust throughout Baltimore County. Voters consistently approve land preservation funding by at least 2/3 majority because they understand its environmental, economic, and social benefits, and that protection of open space is one of the most effective ways to reduce our carbon footprint. Currently, the interest of landowners is voluntary preservation far exceeding available funding, and time is running out. The principal request I wish to make is to restore Baltimore County funding for land preservation programs to its 2006 level of $6 million for the 2-year budget cycle. While proportionately far below our neighboring counties, this would help put us back on track towards achieving our goal of conserving at least 80,000 acres in Baltimore County and far more if possible.
Well, Rob, thank you for your leadership in this space and for your partnership. I think Director Lafferty will give me a thumbs up if I say we are proud to be committed to restoring that level of preservation. We've doubled it this past year in the most recent budget cycle, as I mentioned. We'll add $2 million again in 22, and we'll be back to that $6 million number. We plan to be back to that $6 million number in 2024.
Fran from Facebook asks, work groups in Essex and Dundalk are now looking and planning for the future of these areas. The last effort like this was nearly 15 years ago on the North Point Peninsula. Given the growth that we are now a part of, like it or not, can we get the county to lead an effort to update and modernize our 2007 community plan?
Yes, and that is, I think, will be part of what former Director Gutwald would have been doing, but now Director Lafferty will be leading in terms of our 10-year plan for Baltimore County, as well as these community plans that sort of come as an outfall of that. So Director Lafferty, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but we are very happy to work with you and update our community plans across Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Yes, we are really in the process now of getting ready to roll out our public engagement on the 2030 master plan, but part of that process has been involved looking at the existing plans to see what is still viable, what we need to update, and how the community responds to what had previously been presented. So look forward to working with the community to address the specifics that they think should remain on the front burner.
Thank you.
And one more pre-submitted question. Dear Mr. Crandall, the county executive has just introduced legislation intended to stimulate the entertainment and restaurant business in the county. Will you support this legislation as written for all of the entertainers and restaurants in your district?
I didn't catch the name of the person who sent it in, but I appreciate the question. That legislation was just introduced yesterday evening. I've taken a quick look through it. I haven't examined it the way that it deserves to be examined yet, and we have some time before it comes to a vote. I always look for unintended consequences in legislation, so I'm not ready to announce opposition or support for the bill. I think that it's a big step for the county to make, and it may be one of those issues like we face all the time where there are competing interests, community people, certainly the musical artists that we have in the county. I think that we need to be cognizant that in the 7th district, we have a large number of neighborhood bars and bars that are right next to homes. So I think we need to make sure that we're not causing a larger problem than we need to. But again, with all that said, I haven't been able to dig into the bill in any substantial way at this point. Again, it was just introduced last night. So we'll spend the next legislative cycle digging into it, and we'll get there on a yay or a nay.
Yeah, and as always, we look forward to working with the councilman. There is, just like with the budget, there's a legislative hearing and they have a work session on it, just as they'll have some time reviewing the budget with the agencies. So, as always, we welcome the chance to partner with him on the budget, on any legislation we put forward. And, we appreciate, whatever position anyone has out there on these issues to make sure you weigh in and participate in the process.
Well, thank you all for your participation. I hope you all have a good night. And Pete, who is on the call, will be following up with those of you who we could not get to your questions, or if you had further questions, he would love to talk to you about them. And as always, Mr. County Executive and Councilman, thank you so much for your attention tonight and patience, and just the information you've put out along with all of our department heads.
Just before we wrap, Amanda, if I can thank again Councilman Crandall for his attendance tonight, his partnership in District 7. And I want to thank all of the residents of Baltimore County's 7th District and anyone else who chimed in tonight or tuned in tonight for joining us. Thanks to all the department heads and leaders for their participation as well. And we look forward to working with all of you as we finalize this budget and continue working together. So thanks again, everybody. Be safe and get your vaccine when you can. And we'll see you all hopefully in person next year. So thanks again.